All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. We are now on the worksheet and document portion of today's assignment. So, reminder, right next to me, you will see the worksheet that we are working on. Beyond that, below me is the climate map. Down in that corner over there is the vegetation map. That's where, plants grow. And next to me, over there, you'll have a climate map. All right, so again, our targets can relate climate and vegetation to human population using maps. We can see all the maps. And you can explain why species can move easier along lines of latitude rather than longitude. So we'll be talking about how this east-west is going to make it easier than north-south. Having listened to or read the Guns, Germs, and Steel document, Jared Diamond kind of explains that. Now, he kind of used terminology that may be used more in a college class than a high school, so let's explain a few things. He talked about diffusion, kind of the spreading out of things. Now, we haven't talked much about it in this class, but arguably, the first farmers ever on Earth were in the Middle East, which, if you think about today, Middle East, that doesn't make a lot of sense. It doesn't seem like the climate where that sort of thing would happen. But bear with me here, roughly 10, 12,000 years ago, the earliest farmers found it easiest in this region. And because they're in the Middle East, if you look at Afro-Eurasia, or rather just Eurasia, it's aligned east-west. Therefore, very connected, and as Jared Diamond mentioned, it's easier to diffuse them because the type of plants grow, they germinate, they seed, they mature in similar climate. Same thing with animals, they rely on similar climate as well, and since Eurasia is east-west aligned, it's easier to diffuse or spread out. Now, unfortunately, next door neighbors like in Africa, because of the geography being north-south, it's more difficult for those things to diffuse. And of course, the Americas, we're going to find out soon, it's going to be really spread out north-south, so the diffusion might be even more difficult. But question one, compare the map of Earth's major climate zones with the world biomes map and with the map showing the axis of the inhabited continents above. How many biological and climate zones would a person, plant, or animal have to cross going from, and we've got three sections here, from point A to point B, from point C to point D, and point E to F. So remember, A, B is that east-west Eurasian alignment. So think about east-west. If we were to look over at the climate map, we'll see Eurasia. About how many major climate zones do they have spreading out east and west? Well, we can see there's a lot of green and a blue and a little bit of orange. So at most, maybe 3 climate zones. Looking at Africa, CD, we can see we got dry, we've got tropical, and we've got temperate. We don't really have cold, but we still have about the same 3 zones. And the Americas, line E to F. We've got polar, cold, temperate, dry, and tropical. We've got all 5 of those climate zones. So you can kind of think about how that diffuse east-west first, north-south. I guess Eurasia, technically, if you go to the top, you can see a lot more zones because it's got a lot of climate going on. But if you look at the whole bulk of the continent and where people are spreading out, that east-west alignment, we do see similar climate zones. All right. Let's go and scroll down to question 2. Why might it be easier for plants, animals, and people to migrate within the same or similar biomes or climate zones than is across very different climate zones? Now, we live in a place here in the Midwest of the United States where we technically are in like a temperate climate zone and a cold climate zone. We both have a lot of coniferous forests and deciduous forests. We could easily see how plants and animals living in temperate zones can kind of survive in cold zones. But imagine all the animals that live in a cold zone, whether it's an Arctic fox or a polar bear, a seal, and think about them migrating down towards a tropical zone like in Ecuador or Colombia. That would not go too well for those animals. Same with the plants. Think about pine trees, evergreens, and if we were to uproot those and take it down to tropical climate zones like in a tropical rainforest, and vice versa, taking tropical rainforest animals and dumping them off up in Canada. kind of talk about the ease of that and how people would respond to that. Now that's another question. Question A is now asking of question 2, 2A, which of the 3 life forms is most adaptable? So plant, animal, and what was the other one? Plant, animal, and people. Duh. Us. Which one of them do we think is easier to adapt? And now D, here's a trick, or not D, B. 2B. What if we included microorganisms? This is a hot topic right now because with the current pandemic going on, we have been talking about microorganisms a lot. Which ones can live in what surfaces, airborne, climate, things like that. So think of some of the world's famous microorganisms and how they've spread. Think about how things like the Black Death, how that spread. Compare that to other diseases. So Black Death kind of spread a lot of places that it went. We think about it decimating a lot of Europe, parts of Asia where it originated, but we don't hear too much about the plague in Africa. It turns out Africa is so hot and dry that the bubonic plague really didn't spread down there at all and actually protected those civilizations. While Europe was dying, people in Africa were doing just fine, having their own cultural renaissance, if you will. Other things going on, such... Why, hello, Sadie. How are you? My apologies. That's my cat. Other microorganisms, such as, like, let's say, modern-day malaria. Modern-day malaria is transmitted in tropical regions by mosquitoes. Now, typically, if you're not in a tropical region by those mosquitoes, you're not going to catch malaria. So we're going to see that some of them are very adaptable, and some of them not so much. All right, let's take a look at question 3. Now, give some examples of plant, microorganism, animal, and human migrations you have learned about that involved long distances. Now, this is the third week of school. We haven't talked a lot, so you have to think about other things, or you might even have to Google human migration, plant migration, animal migration, microorganism migration. Was the crossing of the Alaska-Eurasia land bridge that historians believed helped populate the Americas with people from Eurasia in east-west migration or a north-south migration? So kind of look at the land bridge, the Bering Strait. We talked about like tens of thousands of years ago when humans migrated from Eurasia over to the Americas, they came across a bridge that connected Russia and Alaska. Is that a north-south alignment or a north-south alignment? And look at question 3A. What about diseases and insects? So give some examples of plant, microorganism, animal, and human migrations. The book just gave one. It talked about when humans first came over to the Americas roughly 30,000 years ago. Can you think of any other major migrations humans have done? Another one I can think of is a much smaller migration. In the 1960s in the United States, a lot of people moved from the northern parts of the United States to the south. With the invention of indoor air conditioning, places like Alabama, South Texas, and Florida suddenly became a lot easier to live in, and we saw a massive migration. In fact, more people at this time moved from the north to the south than they did during the Great Migration of people moving from the south to the north after the American Civil War in the 1860s. So, just give you an idea of how humans migrate. Those are small migrations. We talked about a large migration being the humans coming to the Americas about 30,000 years ago. If you can't think of any, feel free to Google it. What are plant migrations? What are human migrations? And think about disease and insects. What effects do they have? Okay. And now we are moving down to the bottom part, the long portion of this assessment. Using evidence from all the maps we've used, write one paragraph explaining the quotations from Jared Diamond's book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. Use supporting evidence to support the study of various types of maps. And his quote is, of course, that long reading I gave. So he is making the claim it is much easier to move along a east-west axis than it is a north-south axis. Use the maps and the things we've talked about that would support that claim. All right. Hopefully that helps you guys out. If you're confused on the reading and you're not too sure about it, by all means go back and listen to the recording I gave you. Otherwise, with these directions, you guys are now set to complete this worksheet and write your paragraph and submit it to Schoology for today's assignment. All right, have fun, good luck, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.